If you want to get early access to all of our daily videos, please consider joining our Patreon. I'll put a link below. Here it is on the screen. Again, you get early access to all the daily videos, ad-free, early, before anyone else gets to see them. Have at it. And you can help support the channel. Aliens are being held captive and we have to free them. That's according to Dr. Steven Greer. Let's jump in.
Obviously, I think you've said it before, but you believe that people, organizations, whether, I don't know if you were talking about the government or if you're talking about these rogue groups, have possession or captive alien bodies.
Yeah, they have living ones as well.
They have living ones, and who is this? Is this the government or is this rogue organization?
That's the rogue government. It's the secret government, and those are in places that need to be, let's call, liberated. And
do you know where they are?
Not precisely. I have a very good idea. So one of the things we have mapped are the underground entry points, and then and the connectivity. Say you have the Edwards complex. And then you have east of there what's called the Ant Hill. And those are entry points into underground subterranean facilities or bases. But they connect underground to Nellis and out to the northern net. So it's an underground, that's what they call it, an ant hill. If you go to an ant farm, you go in and there are all these connections, right? So we have a very good idea of where those are. And some of the whistleblowers we're working with know even more. And that needs to be provided to people in the U.S. government so that they can get control of those.
All right, so we've got aliens held captive, living beings, right, in these sort of underground ant hill sort of, structured bases, with secret tunnels. And, of course, it's the secret government that is, holding these beings hostage, if you will, against their will, right? If they need to be liberated, as Dr. Steven Greer puts it, then that means they are held against their will.
There are some very brave men I'm working with who have been special forces guys who are prepared to go in and get those facilities under control and also to liberate those people.
What? He knows some special forces people that want to go in and liberate these aliens? They're going to take control of these facilities? These secret military facilities, right, from this secret rogue government. I mean, how many people do you need for an operation like that, right? What are we talking about? A couple dudes going in? I mean, this isn't a movie. So I don't understand that part at all right here. He's basically saying there's going to be some sort of, operations done to go free these aliens. When is that happening? And when they're freed, are they like, here, have at it? What if they don't have a spaceship? What are you going to do with them? You free them and then what? What are they going to do, right? If they don't have a way to get back to where they're going, or they got a way to call back to their home planet, or how does that work, right? You're going to free them and let them go, or you're going to free them and then keep them captive somewhere else, or they go to straight to a press conference? I mean, what are we talking about here?
That's crazy too. If these things are so smart and so advanced, how are they going to let one of their own be captive by us?
Great question, and I agree. But I have to admit, Dr. Steven Greer's response is, all right, I could consider it.
Well, that's a lot of people say that, but just because you're advanced doesn't mean terrible things don't happen. I mean, technically you could throw a bunch of spears by cavemen into the rotors of a Sikorsky helicopter and jam it up and have it crash. So bad things happen. Of course, being a trauma guy, you just see the weirdest things happen. So just because they're very advanced, people conflate that with being infallible.
Right.
Well, I think God's infallible, but certainly no individual person or civilization's infallible.
And again, all right, that's a fair argument, right? The idea that because they're advanced, they don't make mistakes or, right, can't be taken over. Well, I agree to that to some extent, but to other extent, I don't in the UFO community. Now, in this particular instance, some of these beings are being held captive. Is that possible? Do we have the technology to hold them captive, right? Because one thing would be they got caught. Another thing is we're able to keep them caught for X amount of time. I think that's what, may seem unlikely, right? Not that they got caught, but that the mistake keeps happening, right? You know what I mean? So that's kind of what my argument to that would be, right? But again, I don't know. It is an interesting argument. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.
So this concept that just because they're extremely high tech and bright mean they're infallible? No. No, is it that often that it happens? No, it doesn't. The one site I was over, I was told there were 1 or 2 ET craft per year downed. And I went over 2 black sites. And so, 2 to 4 a year over a big area of that part of the desert. So it's not like they're dropping out of the sky like flies, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It's still terrible.
That's quite literally dropping out of the sky like flies, right? 2 to 4 a year, which, anyway, 2 to 4 craft a year for how many years, right? How many bodies? That's a lot. I mean, how many craft are coming here, right? For that to not be dropping out of the sky like flies, if they're catching 2 to 4 a year, that would mean there are thousands flying around at all times every year. You know what I mean? But we're only getting 2 to 4, right, a year. Again, let's say it starts from Roswell. We're talking 80 plus years. 2 to 4 a year. Let's give it the minimum 2, right? Let's just go with 2. That's 160 UFOs that we have, right? And if we go up to 4, how many is that? It's 320, right? I mean, what are we talking about? How many craft do we have? You know what I'm saying? And we're keeping this all secret, right? And we have the aliens as well. I mean, how many people does this take, the involvement of all these people, right? And how many different crafts and what, everything that comes with collecting the crafts and having the crafts and researching the craft. I mean, what?
But then remember, we have sites like that all over the world, outback of Australia, South America, all around. Mm-hmm. And it's still tragic, and it shouldn't be happening. And when there are ones that are living, they just don't flat out kill them. They would prefer to interrogate them and keep them. And so my understanding is that there are a number of ETs that are in captivity and are still living. One guy euphemistically called them refugees. I think not. They're prisoners.
Okay, so they're keep them alive and then interrogate them. How? How are they interrogating them? Right? Don't they communicate telepathically? How are you going to control some being like that? Right? They can read everyone's thoughts in the room and around them. Like, I don't. Again, that's what's being said, right? And interrogating them, how? Like, how are you going to interrogate? And are all the beings the same? Are they all you know what I mean? Are they all the same? Again, there's so many questions here, right? So many. These things are just said like, yeah, this is what's happening. Like, well, wait a second. What do you mean? How many aliens are in these craft? Like, how many of the 2 to 4 a year, how many come with aliens? How many aliens could we actually have, right? Let's say it's half, right? The 2 to 4, right? So let's just say it's 1 alien per year. We're talking 80 aliens that we got. I mean, how many aliens do we have? And I agree, if this is happening, they are prisoners, right? If they're being held against their will, right, and we're interrogating them, right? But again, so many questions. I have so many questions, too many to get into in this video. I'm sure you have questions too. What's all the first things coming to your mind about all of this when you hear this, right? Try to break it down logistically. How has this actually happened? Try to imagine it, right, and start multiplying, and then it just becomes kind of ludicrous, right? Right, and the fact that we're going to go free all these aliens. Steven Greer knows some special forces dudes who are going to go in on a rogue operation against this secret rogue government to free these prisoners, right? Like, I just, honestly, I'm speechless.
So I think that is another, humanitarian effort that should happen at some point where they're freed.
And how many different versions or species of these things do you think we have? And have you ever seen any of them in person?
I've not seen living ones in captivity in those bases. No, I've seen ETs, but they're not, to my knowledge. I've never heard anyone describe the variety of them.
Huh. So he's never seen one in captivity in person, but he's seen ETs in person, just not the ones that are being held captive, and never heard about the variety of them. That's not a question you would ask when you're talking with the special forces. Don't you want to know what the prisoners look like, talk like, are like, so that you can prepare, so you can bring things? I mean, I'm not a military guy and I don't know anything, but you need to know something about the prisoner you're going to rescue, right? You know, if you're going to go save Private Ryan, right, you're going to need to know something about it. You know what I mean? I mean, what if you need to take medical supplies? You know, what if they're 30 feet tall and you're taking in a chopper that doesn't fit 30-foot tall people? It doesn't make sense. Like, you would want to know details about these alien species that you're going to go liberate. What if they can't walk? What if this? What if that? What if they need their craft to move around? I mean, again, how would you not ask all of this? How would you not know this? That doesn't make any sense at all. Because then you'd have to ask, how long have you been talking about this with these special forces guys? That didn't come up. Gosh, how many different alien species are there? Like, how many are you going to get? Like, how many can you liberate at one time? You're going to liberate them all? And if they're in bases all over the world, are you going to have to do multiple operations at once? Because if you hit one base, aren't they going to alert the others? Move them around? I mean, does that make sense? So which base are they going to go liberate? How many? You know what I mean? What kind of intelligence have they done to know how many people are in each base and what they are and whatever? Again, I'm not an expert. I don't know anything. And I would imagine someone who's, you know, military trained would have 1,000 more questions than I just asked, right? About knowing where you're going and who you're going to pick up. Again, so you can have the right vehicles, the right equipment. Again, this seems pretty obvious, and it's very interesting that Steven Greer doesn't have these answers.
I know that in the crash retrievals, now we have 122 documented crash retrieval events that are in, part of them are in here. Okay. But in our archive, dpiarchive.com, all of them are in there. Mm-hmm. And they range from ones that are a foot and a half tall to some that are 8-10 feet tall, and all kinds of different, we would just say, you know, genetic expressions. But they seem to all have a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. But
interesting.
But beyond that, there's just an infinite variety.
How would you know that? You just said you don't know. You haven't heard them talk about that. So how do you know they all have a head, 2 legs, and a head, 2 legs, and 2 arms? Right? They're just basically humanoid looking. Right? You're saying all the aliens that we have in captivity are all humanoid looking. And again, what are we talking about here?
What about the mantis ones?
Well, that one that was the healer, when you see him, is sort of a triangular head, and they're known as really extraordinary healers. I mean, they have some amazing healing capabilities.
That one right there?
This guy.
That's a mantis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What some people would call a sort of a triangular head.
The alien photo. I made a video about this. I'll put a link in the description. They bring it up again in this podcast and basically say, well, there are mantids. He knows about those. And they're great healers, apparently.
You can see in a sort of, you can outline it. If I had my cursor, I could do it. But remember, this is in complete darkness in the wilderness up on a mountain in Arizona. This was actually in Oracle, ironic, O-R-A-C, like Oracle, Arizona.
Interesting.
Yeah, a couple years ago. And so that's, you know, and we love doing that. That's my real passion, is going out and the experimentation and using consciousness and remote viewing to make contact and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it varies on the group, because if there's someone not on the page or someone there who's filled with superstition and fear, they won't show up because they don't want to be around dumb people who haven't figured that out.
What? The aliens don't want to be around dumb people who haven't figured them out, so they don't appear to them? That might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Now, what?
Sorry, but you know, if you haven't figured that out, they're going, "Why are you out there with us? You know, go home, and go look at Stranger Things or something."
I'm just gonna move on past that. Now, let me know what you think in the comments. Do we have these aliens that need to be liberated? Let me know what you think. We'll see you guys in the next video. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
I live inside inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.